Rick and Morty is an iconic series where we have seen a lot of objects that can be from inoffensive objects to objects that can be a threat to the world, dimension, or even several realities. Here in this video we are going to see the objects of this series and try to see which is the weakest and the most powerful object. The Yum-Yums are the snacks or bars seen in the episode of Look Who's Purging Now. And these would be like a kind of candy whose only effect is to make those who consume it aggressive since they contain a substance called purginol. Although in the chapter we see that these candies do not contain it because we know their function thanks to Rick, so I suppose they would work to increase the aggressiveness and strength of the consumer. The Purpose robot is seen a couple of times in the series, and although it is not done much because Rick always gives him very simple tasks, he seems to have a certain degree of conscience since the poor thing always gets sad because his purpose is very simple or very basic. It is not known exactly what the maximum capacity of this robot is when doing a task, so because of that unknown I leave it here. The Plumbus is a multipurpose household device that first appears in the Interdimensional Cable episode 2. At the time the episode aired, it was not known what it was used for, but now we know that it is a multipurpose tool for household chores since you can cook, clean areas difficult, and even serves as a radio, so it can be used to make your life easier, like any other house artifact like a broom or a mop. Gwendolyn is a robot seen in the chapter of Raising Gazorpazorp. This was created by the inhabitants of Gazorpazorp, and would be a kind of robot or toy to satisfy your lowest desires. The function that this robot has is the collection of pollen from the male bee to create a baby without the need for the female to be involved. In theory, it does not sound so useful or powerful, but it must be considered that this is literally a machine to make monsters since in the chapter, it is mentioned that the males of this species are one of the most violent and aggressive creatures in the universe. So if they fall into the wrong hands or into the wrong reproductive system, it could be a great threat, but could be used to preserve the species in case of the female robots to be extinct for some reason. The same purpose that the Omnitrix had when Asmut built it. The gripping shoes are seen in the pilot chapter of the series, and these allow the user to adhere to any surface, allowing them to climb almost anything. These shoes are quite useful depending on the situation, as they could be used to escape or explore a place, but other than that I don't see much use for them. Of course they have to be activated before using them, because if not you can end up like Morty. But these shoes are incredible, you wouldn't believe it. These shoes are amazing. The Mega Seeds are seen in Dimension 35C of the pilot chapter of the series. These are a fruit of the Mega Tree which can dissolve in the whole of the user, granting them temporal superintelligence. This could be used to carry out or solve some problems, which is quite useful, but it has a big disadvantage, and that is that apart from having to put it through your hole, the user becomes an idiot. This happens for several days, leaving the user disabled. So this offers you a great advantage, which is superintelligence, but with very considerable disadvantages, so that is why it is here. The fortune cookies from the chapter 5 of season 6 are one of the most powerful objects in the entire series, since these cookies, unlike the real ones, can fulfill everything that is written inside due to a creature that makes it possible. The effects of these cookies are varied since it depends on what you get. For example, we saw that you can be immortal, become a robot, stick to walls, or acquire combat skills, among many others. Another advantage or disadvantage depending on the effect that touches you is that this effect does not go away until the destiny is fulfilled, so you can't die either if your prediction is not fulfilled, as happened to Jerry. And if someone were to have total control of everything that is written inside these cookies, they would be quite powerful since they could put whatever they wanted inside them. So for me, this is the most broken thing of all Ricky Morty, and would be in the top if the creature wasn't already killed, or if the cookies could come from another source, because let's remember that the cookies no longer exist because of the adventure of Jerry and Rick. So that's why I leave it here. The Bad People's Pistol was seen in this last season of the series, and I found it quite curious since it literally shoot bad people. We saw Jeffrey Dahmer, and I'm not going to explain who is him. But I imagine he can shoot anyone who did something bad in general. But it is only useful for the bad people to do something bad to the opponent, so I guess it depends on whoever comes out. It can be quite useful or not. The bubble gun has a fairly simple use since it encloses a person in a giant bubble, and it seems to be quite resistant and with limited air, which can be quite useful to enclose different opponents, but don't think that outside of that, could be very useful. The memory eraser is used to erase memories, even make them forget who they are, having the potential to implant false memories. That's why I consider it a little bit stronger than the previous ones. Now let's see the Rick's Pickle Laser, which is a fairly small weapon, but it can cause a lot of destruction, and it only uses batteries to power up and launch the laser, and it is quite powerful. It was made by Rick while fighting against Jaguar in an office, and is incredible how Rick managed to make a weapon in those circumstances and how powerful it ended up. It may not be the most powerful object, but its efficiency in combat is very large. We can see the love potion in the chapter called the Rick's Potion, and this has the purpose of making people or people who come into contact with it fall in love with Morty automatically because it is made with a fluid from an alien species and also a bit of Morty's DNA. In the chapter, Morty applied it to Jessica, making her madly in love with him, and so this could serve so that everyone who is affected by it loves the owner of the potion. The disadvantage here is that it seems that this love that people feel is too much extreme to the point of hurting Morty. Also, if the affected has the flu, this could spread the effects of the position to more people, creating a kind of disease that everyone falls in love with Morty. If someone could make this potion less potent and more effective, someone could even make the people in love with them their own army that could do everything they say. But it is just a guessing because Rick never investigated this potion. So in the current state, it could even hurt the person using the potion. So I leave it here. The Death Crystal is an object seen in Chapter 1 of Season 4, and this is capable of showing its bearer the way in which he will die. As we see in the chapter, Morty uses it to be able to have an ending together with Jessica, causing him to perform several actions to continue on this path. And in the end, the truth does not change, which can be a very useful object to avoid your death since, as I say, it shows it to you, and you can use it to drive the direction of your life to end like that. But is very vague because you can think you are going to die in one situation, but does not give you the context, so can give you a different death than which you want. So is better to use it to avoid death in a difficult scenario that is immediate. Without a doubt, the box of the Messiahs is one of the most iconic objects of the series, and these are seen in several chapters. This object is a cube or a blue box with a large button on one of the faces that when pressed summons a Messiah that would be a blue creature. These were created in order to help meet a specific objective or task. For example, helping someone to be popular, being your psychologist or golf classes, among others. And these disappear when they finish their task. As advantages, we have that several of these can be generated in one go. Single box, so you could create an army of Mysics. This sounds pretty good, but there are certain disadvantages since, as I said, they are immortals, but not indestructible, so they can be damaged. Also, as Rick mentions, the tasks have to be simple since they are not God, or they don't fulfill wishes. So it has to be something that is within their capabilities. And finally, they can become quite stressed if they live for a long time. so they can take drastic measures to fulfill their mission. So well, I think that the mosaic would be useful in certain cases, so that's why I leave it here. The Morphizer Z is a kind of laser beam connected to a console which can change the properties of something or someone that is hit by the ray. In the chapter of the Whirly Dearly conspiracy, Summer uses this artifact to make her upper body grow, but it goes wrong and ends up enlarging more parts of her body. In addition to this, enlargement function can also shrink objects, turning them into diamond and put their inside out. Probably it hides many more functions, and also the growth limit of the laser is probably infinite. So with it, you could acquire a lot of strength as it is huge as well as very resistant. I feel that this machine has more potential, but since we didn't see more of this object, I can't put it higher in the video. The neutrino bomb was seen in the chapter of the Vindicators 3, where Rick places this bomb in a kind of trap. We could not see it in operation, but it is mentioned that this is powerful enough to wipe out the entire planet. So it is a very strong weapon of mass destruction. Apart from the fact that we do not know exactly how it works, is also not very complicated to disarm. In addition, it has a 40% chance of failing. If we had seen its function or destructive capacity better, I think I would put it higher in the video, but for me it has very marked disadvantages. The elemental rings are seen in the chapter of A Rick Convenient Mort, and these are rings that possess the powers of the elements. These powers are launched through the rings, so if you put it on, it will be launched through. In addition to the fact that to be able to use this power you have to mention the element you want to launch. It looks quite interesting since it seems that it can make variations with the rings. For example, water can generate ice or combinations of attacks if you have all the rings. And last but not least, you can summon Planetina, who would serve as an ally. The disadvantage, as I said before, is that to use them you have to mention the element, so every attack you launch will take away the surprise factor of what you are going to do. These are very good objects that are easy to handle and can be mastered in no time. Ferrofluid is seen in the chapter of the Death Crystal, and as its name says, it is a kind of alien fluid that can combine with matter, doing whatever the bearer says. For example, in the chapter Morty wants to protect himself, so the ferrofluid creates a kind of fortress with it to that he lives a good while they're being fed by this. I see this object quite similar to the Venom symbiote, since in itself it can transform the user and make different forms to protect or attack. I feel that in the chapter it is not used as much, and I see a great potential in this object, so that's why I leave the ferrofluid here. We continue with the Phoenix operation, which is a program that Rick created in case that he died. This is quite useful since, theoretically, he has infinite lives because of this. As we saw in the chapters where the Phoenix operation appears, it can create clones or also be reborn in different bodies in other universes. So we could consider it as a kind of life insurance in case things go wrong. And Rick's inventions are useless to protect himself. We can see them in the chapter of the Purge. These are sent to Rick and Morty so they can fight the villagers of the Purge planet. As the name suggests, these are combat suits equipped with different types of weapons such as missiles, cannons, blades, among other things. In addition, whoever is using it also acquires super strength, resistance, and is also capable to fly. I think it is a great object for combat, having many very good implementations. The cognition amplifier is a kind of helmet seen in the episode called Lawnmower Dog, where Rick puts it on the dog of the family to make him smarter. Snuffles becomes aware due to this helmet and plans to take over the Earth and conquer humans. The advantages of this object is that it grants the wearer superintelligence, being able to build various things like armor or robotic suits for dogs, among other things. In other words, Snuffles could easily have conquered the entire world. But because of the love he had for Morty, he decided not to. But believe me, in the wrong hands, this can be a pretty powerful weapon. The save point device save is a control with a fairly basic function, since with it you can save points or checkpoints so that the user can return to them like a kind of video game. At first, this seems to go back in time, but Rick explains that in reality it sends the user to an alternate reality when they load a save point. So any event or mistake that is made actually happened in another reality, but the user is safe. It sounds pretty bad that the alternate versions suffer what was caused with this control, but in theory it is quite useful to save yourself in different cases or do practically what you want without consequences, so for me that gives it quite a few points, but the only bad thing that I mentioned before is that the alternate versions will suffer the consequences, but apart from that I think it is quite broken. The thing is, it is in the chapter called Time Ruptures, and this is a control that Rick uses to stop time and fix the house before Jerry and Beth arrived. This contains a time crystal which can freeze time. Freezing the time for me is one of the most broken powers that exist, because with it you can do many things. I mean, who hasn't fantasized about doing that? This could save you in many situations or also be useful in combat, since your opponent could do practically nothing. Apart from that, this has a somewhat big disadvantage, and that is that over time it can cause ruptures in it that are not easy to repair. The space cruiser is Rick's ship seen in most, if not all, episodes of the series. And this may seem like a ship built of garbage, which it really is, but it hides many very useful and curious things. To begin with, it has infinite energy, which is powered by a mini-world as we saw in a chapter. It also has a kind of Alexa with integrated consciousness, since it can follow orders and also speak or do what she wants. To a certain extent, this is practically a combat machine, since it has many weapons and things integrated both to defend and to attack. Things like rockets, pistols, flamethrowers, laser beams, disintegrators, robotic arms, among many other weapons. That does not end there, since it has other interesting things like a kind of live series cloner, camouflage, and also in case of, if it gets damaged, it has some mini robots that repair it. The truth is that I could be here for half an hour mentioning everything that this ship has. But I think that with what I said, it is enough to consider it as one of the most powerful objects in the entire series. It is clear that the portal gun has to be at the top of the video, since it is the main tool or object of the series. First of all, this is used to travel to different places, planets, galaxies, or universes, being a very useful mobility tool. So with this, you are practically connected to all places in the world, the universe, and the entire galaxy to travel wherever you please. And that is why I do not put it in first place, since I consider it more like an object of mobility because it is its main function. It could also be used as a kind of weapon to fight, since you can send someone to a dangerous place like a volcano or into space quite easily. We have also seen that sometimes Rick catches Morty has an infinite fall, so this could also be applied. On the other hand, as we have seen in other chapters, it can be modified to summon beasts or also simply eliminate those who cross the portal, turning it into a powerful weapon, if you know how to use it. Although on the other hand, it also has some disadvantages, the main one being the portal fluid, since without this the gun does not work. But apart from that, as I say, it is a weapon that I consider to be one of mobility. But if it is used correctly, you can get a lot out of it, since it is very powerful. Now, as the most powerful object in the series is the Omega device, that we saw in the most recent season, that it would be Season 7 Chapter 5, and this would be a machine created by Rick Prime. This machine itself has a very simple but also very powerful function, since this device is capable of detecting anyone within the different existing universes, and with just one button bring it to this machine to be eliminated along with all its variants, so that he along with all his variants disappear permanently from the universes. We can see that Rick Prime used this machine with the slow Mobius and also with Jane so that they would disappear permanently from everywhere. As I say, a single use powerful enough to be able to finish off any existing person, and that for me makes it worthy of this first place. This is the list in my opinion, but some objects can be more powerful than other in some situations. But however, you can leave me your opinion in the comments below, and give me the order of which would be the most powerful and weakest of them all.